Thanks for tuning in to Reliance Talk, and I'm your host, Sadell Lewis. Today I have with me Boxx, the Hungry Genius.
Correct.
How you doing today, Boxx?
I'm blessed. How you feeling?
Great, awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
So, how did you get the name Boxx, the Hungry Genius?
Well, that's a long story. I got the name Boxx from the shape of my head. And I started off as Lil Boxx, and then I reinvented myself a few years ago, and that's where the Hungry Genius came into play.
What's behind the story of the Hungry Genius? Like, where did it come from?
Well,
What made you incorporate that in your name?
Lil Boxx was more edgy, you know what I'm saying, from around the way from the trenches. And then I evolved a few years ago, and my music wasn't matching up with my name no more.
Mm-hmm.
So when you would think of Lil Boxx, you know, I come from the Lil era. When you think of Lil, it gives you a certain connotation when you think of music. So when people would listen to my mature music as a young man, as an older man now, they wouldn't think that it would go with the name Lil Boxx. So I had to change the name in order for people to even want to give my music a listen. Being Lil Boxx as an older artist versus a younger artist, it make people think your music don't sound a certain kind of way. You know what I'm saying? So I had to drop the Lil Boxx. I wasn't Lil no more.
So when you were talking about your music, when you do your music,
Mm-hmm.
what inspires you to write? Or do you write, or do you have other people that write for you?
Right.
Or
I write 100%. I come from everything. Music was self-taught.
Mhm.
So I learned, there's nobody in my immediate family that did music. I learned music by ear, listening to a lot of mixtape East Coast artists, down South West Coast artists, and then I just was inspired. I fell in love with writing, you know what I'm saying? So I'd be writing in class, teacher, I might get in trouble because I'm writing in my journal too much, or writing a rhyme, getting my rhymes threw away in class. So I always was infatuated with writing. And then when I applied it to music, I just kept writing, you know. But what inspires me is just, you know, being able to create from scratch. You know, you come up with an idea out the blue, a hook, a verse, a song, and then you get it, you go to the studio, you see the whole process of writing it, getting it recorded, mixed, mastered, go and take it to the club, or go and take it to wherever, and then you seeing people gravitate to something you just pulled out of thin air.
what initially inspired you to get into rap? Or you always been into it? Like, what was it that said, man, I'm about to write this song? Or,
Yeah.
you know, what was it?
Well, it was a journey. When my mama found out I fell in love with music, I come from a Christian background.
Mm-hmm.
So she started to push Christian music on me, like the gospel gangsters and, you know, Donnie McClurkin, Fred Hammond. Of course, Kirk Franklin used to go hard in my room.
Yeah.
And she started pushing me towards the positive rap, Will Smith, with Millennium and stuff like that at first. But, you know, it was just something about, they call it the devil's music. I still wanted to listen to the Lil Waynes, the Hot Boys, things like that. And then I had my barber's name was Kid. He was from New Orleans. Every time he would cut my hair, he would always be playing rap music in the barbershop where he used to cut out the house. So every time I hear a new mixtape or something, I would ask him, could I make a copy of it? I was a bootlegger at my high school, so we started bartering. So he would cut my hair for free, and then I would bring him new music from Baton Rouge, and we'll swap out for New Orleans CDs. And that led me to Lil Wayne, the Hot Boys, Dipset, Cameron, Fabulous, East Coast artists as well. And then it kind of seeped into me, and when I started writing, I kind of took more of an East Coast lyrical approach from listening to all those artists. But I was selling the mixtapes in high school, but it started from my barber. We was trading mixtapes.
So you've been a hustler.
Yeah, I didn't even know I had an entrepreneur spirit.
Yeah,
I just
and
didn't know.
You was doing it and didn't even know what you was preparing yourself for.
Correct, I didn't even know.
Already was in the game and didn't
Man.
even know that you was literally there.
Bartering, negotiating, 2 for 5, 4 for 10, all that. You know, my biggest selling CD in high school was Usher Confessions. And it was crazy. All the dudes that used to get suspended and fight, they would be like sneaking, like, man, let me get that Usher CD. You know what I'm saying? Because they ain't want to seem like too soft, because they were known for beating people up, but they'd come to me for the R&B mixes, you know. So yeah, it was dope. But I would listen to the music so I could sell it, and then I would fall in love with the music. So when I started writing, I kind of already had like a musical background that I didn't know from just listening to music all the time, you know.
The music that you listen to, do you feel like it had you want to like do whatever it was that was in that song?
In the music, right? So did the music influence me?
Yeah.
Definitely. It definitely it influenced me. But you know, I think that's when the parenting comes in, because you know, all of the music I listened to early on was the shoot 'em up, bang bang, street music. But also I had a family that would tell me how far I can go with certain with my actions. I used to have to sneak my CDs in.
Yeah.
So I would put my Lil Wayne mixtapes and stuff in my boxes, and come home and have like 4 or 5 CDs in my boxes, because my mama didn't let me listen to cursing. And then I would go in my room, lock my door, and then upload them to my laptop. I mean, not my laptop, to my desktop. And then I would go back and put mixes together and sell them. So I was already infatuated with the street and the hood music, but it didn't make me go do a lot of those things, but it influenced me to do certain things. But I also had like a backbone at home that stopped me from doing certain things, you know. And I've had people be influenced from my music. I've had fans reach out to me and say that I've stopped them from committing suicide. I've had fans reach out to me, they've gotten off crack cocaine from listening to my heartfelt record. So my trajectory and how I write songs started to change when people started to DM me and say, man, I was going through this tough time in my life and this song helped me. That's when I knew it was bigger than me. At first I started rapping for me, but I didn't know that my music could touch people like that.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I feel like a lot of music do influence our children and stuff, and a lot of times, just like you said, you used to take the music and go into your room and listen to that music still.
Yes.
So it still wasn't better than you, even though regardless of what you was being.
Well, my mama, I thought my mama didn't know. My mama very spiritual. To this day, I still don't know how she found out. I was sneaking a lot of my cursing music in, and I would put it in a Nike box. Well, what happened was, I woke up at 2 in the morning one night, and my mama had my Walkman CD player just sitting by my bed listening to all my cursing music. I don't know how she found my stash under the bed, what made her think I had cursing music. I don't know if I was moving a certain kind of way when I would get home. And she was listening to the worst album at that time, which was not in terms of how it sounded, but the cussing, it was David Banner. And obviously David Banner on his conscious wave now, but at that point he was straight out of Mississippi, raw. His intro, he was cussing up a storm. And he heard so loud I could hear it through the headphones.
When she was listening to it?
Oh, yeah. So I woke up like, you know, I'm waking up, the light on. I'm like, man, what's going on? She's sitting in a chair in my room listening to David Banner. All I hear is Mississippi, MF, H this sucker, woo, woo, woo. And I'm just looking at her, and she was like, where you get this from? And I'm like, I ain't even know what to say. And she took my whole box, and like, I think she threw it away.
How that made you feel when you see that box get thrown away?
I felt like devastated, because that's around the time I had started falling in love with. I didn't know what hip hop was.
Yeah.
I just was falling in love with the sound. At that time, Ludacris was just becoming Ludacris. 50 Cent was just becoming 50 Cent. All the people that's moguls now were just in their prime. T.I. had just dropped trap music. You know what I'm saying? So she threw all of it away, but I had all that backed up on my computer, so she didn't know about tech.
Yeah.
So she threw all that away, and I just reburnt all of it.
You still,
Yeah.
you still. So what did she tell you in that moment? Like, how did she feel? Like, did you feel like you disappointed her, or was ashamed or anything just from the music?
No, you know how kids are. You know, they feel like your parents don't understand. You know, I wasn't doing nothing. I didn't have no business in terms of out there in the streets, but I just wanted to listen to this music. But, you know, at that point, she really was disappointed because, you know, my mom is very structured, and she's very, my mom's a prophetess, so she prays a lot. My grandmother was an evangelist, which was my mom's mom, so I come from a strong church background. So for me to be listening to cussing like that, or me sneaking the CDs in, that's when I think that's when my mama first found out I was sneaking. You know what I'm saying? So, you know.
How old you were?
I probably was about 14 or
Okay.
15 or something like that.
You came up in a two-parent household. Was your mom and your dad there?
My dad wasn't around, but I didn't. It was still two-parent to me because my grandfather stepped in where my dad left a void at. So I had my grandfather up until I was 17 years old, and then he passed away. So, you know, all my life up until that point, it was my grandmother, my mama, and my grandfather. So whatever my dad wasn't doing, my grandfather stepped in and played football with me, basketball. I would go spend time with him. So I had male energy, a male figure around me up until my 11th, 12th grade year.
Did you ever feel like you wish your dad was there, or did you know of him? Did you know about him?
That's a good question. I knew of him. My mom always kept it G with me. So when I would ask where my daddy was at, wherever he was at currently in his life, she would tell me. My dad was in the streets, so he went from selling drugs to getting on drugs, and then in and out of prison and in and out of crack houses and in and out of rehab. That just was his, you know, his I guess you want to say that's what he was on. But I didn't know he was. I didn't ask where he was at because my grandfather always was there. So I never was like the kid playing in the grass outside and seeing other people play with their dad and be like where my daddy was at.
Right.
Because my grandfather did everything with me. So it wasn't until he passed my 11th grade year where I started to see, like, dang, I ain't got no father figure. You know what I'm saying?
So did that affect you like in a major way? Not having that father figure there in 11th grade, getting ready to graduate from high school.
Yeah, it did. That changed my whole life, you know. So every mistake you think I could made except going to jail, I did it, you know. I was numb, you know what I'm saying? So I lost my father figure. And I think what was tough on me was not losing my grandfather, but he was dying, I think, from cancer, and nobody let me know. So I didn't prepare myself to grieve. So, you know, all I knew was my mom and my grandfather and my grandmother. And then my mom just checked me out of school one day and was like, you know, I'm like, where we going? My mom very structured. So even if she was gonna check me out of school, she would tell me, I'm checking you out of school today. So for them to be like, Chris, for checkout, I'm like, my mama didn't tell me I was checking out today. But the whole time I didn't know my grandfather was on his deathbed. So she put me in the car, we go see my grandfather, he on his deathbed. I see him dying, you know, and, you know, I remember just going back to school, and then like 2 days later, my mom was like, he passed away. And instantly, I had to be strong for her and grieve while I was strong for her, because that was her father. And, you know, I just rebelled after that. I started telling her I wasn't going to school. I started skipping school, talking back to my teachers, running the streets, whatever. Got expelled my senior year. Went back to school, got expelled again. And then I finally like snapped back into it and was like, you know, my grandfather was a respected teacher from Donaldsonville and in Baton Rouge. And I was like, you spitting on his legacy, being that he was a teacher and you getting put out of school. So I went and checked myself into an alternative school, and then I graduated as a promise to keep to him. So I got back on the right track.
Was it something that grabbed you and was like, you know, you got to get out of here, you got to get back with it, you got to snap back into reality, you got to come, which that was your reality at the moment, but was it something that was like, you know, come on man, you got to get back into this?
It was, but it wasn't nothing specifically. It was just the people that I was in when I was in the 12th grade, the people that was in the 10th grade with me were now in the 12th grade with me. So now it's more of an embarrassment. I'm a super senior, what they call it. So I've been supposed to graduate. So all my partners, they in their sophomore year in college, I'm still wearing a high school uniform.
Gotcha.
See what I'm saying? So the kids that was in the 10th grade when I was in the 12th grade, they're in the 12th grade with me, and all my partners that was in the 12th grade with me, they sophomores in college. I'm still wearing a school uniform. You know, so the embarrassment, you know, and I was popular in school around that time, but then it's like, are you really popular because you're the class clown or whatever, or are you popular because people know you're around the school because you've been around here too long? You know, so I did it on my own. Nothing catastrophic happened. I just was like, man, this ain't you, you know. people talked to me. My uncle was fussing at me. People just, everybody in the family trying to just tell me what to do. That made me rebel more. And then I just snapped out of it one day and was like, man, you know, your grandfather was a solid man. He was a respected man. And, you know, you spitting on his legacy, and I believe in legacy. And he was a man's man. So I got all the way right, went and put myself in alternative school, graduated, and then I started to get back. I started the process of getting back on track.
That's awesome though. Like, a lot of people don't have the ability to hold themselves accountable.
Right.
You know, and that brings you so far in life as far as accountability. If you don't hold yourself accountable for what you're doing, and you don't have that person that's gonna actually hold you accountable, like, man, you need to get back. You need to get back on it. You know, you was able to get there, and you was able to hold yourself accountable. So that carries major weight.
I don't know to this day what made me do that, other than, you know, I come from a family with morals, principles, character, integrity. That's important. And I just felt like I was spitting on that. My grandfather gave me everything. I'm like, man, you out here, you know, my last name Kelson, so I got a rare last name. So it's like, when I was getting in trouble, they like, you Mr. Freddie grandson? So it's like, he built this legacy, and then I'm tearing it down, you know, so.
Because everybody know him.
Yeah.
But they know him for something totally different.
And I don't know why I thought like that as a young man, because most kids don't have the wisdom to think, they don't even care about legacy. But I cared about that, and I'm like, man, I can't do this to my grandfather. So, you know, and as I got older and evolved, I felt like him dying gave me the ability to live, because my mom was very structured. She still is. That's just her personality. She had rules. My grandfather would make sure when I would break her rules that he would keep me in line. But when he died, I rebelled. But that was naturally who I was. I don't like rules. I like breaking rules. I like making my own rules. I like marching to the beat of my own drum. I like doing what I want to do. So it felt good. I ain't gonna lie. I don't regret rebelling in them years. I did what I wanted to do, got expelled, did whatever. But it felt good because I found me. I was like, man, it feels good to do what I really want to do. Even though I made a lot of mistakes, I put my mama through a lot. But once I got back on track, I knew, okay, you naturally a rebel. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know that when my grandfather was alive, because whenever I would cull outside the lines, my grandfather would come back in and be like, you know, chill out or stop or whoop de whoop. And I respected him because he was a man.
Yeah.
So, you know, I felt like he died for me to live. And, you know, and I think that if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have turned to the streets and was getting involved. I think my street smarts, my ability to deal with people, I think I wouldn't have got none of that. So, you know, I don't regret none of them times, you know.
So basically, like, you were sheltered.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I was sheltered. Had to come home when the street lights came on. My mama didn't play none of that. Got off the phone at 9 o'clock. I was very sheltered. So when my grandfather died, it was like, I'm finna do everything she told me I couldn't do, you know. And I never disrespected my mama up until that point. So she'd knock on the door, it's time to go to school. And one day I just made up my mind. I'm like, I'm bigger than her. She can't do me nothing. I was like, no, I ain't going. And she was appalled, like, what you mean? I'm like, I ain't going. Like, stop knocking on my door. And after she seen that I really was standing on that, she started asking, are you going to school today? You know, and then it just got to the point she just washed her hands with me and left me in God's hand. It's like, if I broke curfew, you got to sleep outside. Right. She started showing me tough love. If you don't come home before I say so, I don't know where you're going to go, sleep on the steps, you know. And then that tough love is what, you know, it toughened me up. You know what I'm saying? She didn't like take my side and be like, oh, let me pat you on the tutu, because I had a brother and a sister that was younger than me, and she was looking at it from a leadership standpoint, like, if I let you play with me, they gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Right, so, like, they're gonna feel like it's okay for them.
Correct. So,
going into it.
Right, but I was just going, I was an adolescent going through, you know, what most kids go through when they don't have no male figure or energy to direct them, you know? Right,
and so many kids deal with it so much earlier on than 11th grade. They got kids in primary school and before.
This kids running you'll be amazed how many kids running their household at 6th and 7th grade. They getting their siblings up for school, getting them dressed. They self-sufficient. They know how to get on the bus, answer the phone. at an early age. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
So
yeah.
you was one of those kids.
Definitely.
Was you know I ain't lying.
Definitely.
Man.
We had a household.
So you right.
We
made
had a
you grow up
household,
fast.
right? So you basically in that moment you don't really have a choice, but you have a choice because
Right.
really, you know, we was able to do if we whatever we, you know, my auntie was working 2 and 3 days
Yeah.
sometimes, and you
Yeah.
know, mama was working, and sometimes she was just gone. You
Right.
know, so it was our choice basically.
What they call
and
it,
we went-
latchkey kids or whatever like that.
I don't know what you call it.
Y'all
but I
had
was
to
one
do
of them.
whatever. Y'all had to do y'all thing.
Right, but you know, I chose to stay out the streets and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But we still went to parties and
And
did
still
whatever.
live. Right.
Right.
I get it.
We'll be right back.